Dear listeners, Assalamu alaikum. There are a lot of news right now that I want to talk about because it's very important to understand where the world is going and what is happening in the world. So let's just get into it. There's one concept that I want to really, I was trying to figure out what is happening. If you see, you hear, you think about a lot of these news that you come across in terms of there's a lot of drought, there is famine coming, at the same time there's flood happening in the world. And it's very hard to comprehend how is it possible that both of these things are happening and what is really happening, because sometimes you come across the news which is divided or spread in different areas, different locations, and you realize like it's possible that it might not be happening, or it is just being exaggerated as part of climate change or something. Like, what is really happening? So what I've done is I have looked at different perspectives to understand historically, has it ever happened? What is happening right now from a drought perspective, from a flood perspective, and can this happen at the same time, and very objectively? And what does that mean for us right now? So first of all, this is an image that I've taken from this website, uh, internationaldrought.gov, and essentially what it is showing is the 3, 4, 5 big areas of concern that I wanted to highlight. They're marked with the red circle, and what they're showing is, so basically the way to read this first, let me align everyone on what does it mean. So if it is dark maroon color, it means that there is extreme drought. If it's dark blue color, it means there is extreme wetness condition, which leads to flooding, etc. Both of these things are very bad for humanity because it results in destruction of crops, destruction of life, destruction of cattle, and so on, so food sources. So there are 6 areas of concern in the world right now as of August 10, 2022. And the one on the left is highlighting United States. This is showing areas which are under severe drought conditions. You might have heard about areas in the west where there is drought. There is like wildfire all over the place all the time, but Lake Mead, Lake Powell, the Hoover Dam, all of them are going down into severe drought conditions. Every day there is news about that. Then in the middle, you see the entire Europe is in the drought conditions, and we're going to look at like what's happening over there. But after Europe, you look at a little bit on the right and you see the Middle East, especially Iraq. Look at Iraq. It's like under extreme drought. And in Saudi Arabia, extreme drought conditions. And then as you move to the right, you see extreme blue conditions in parts of Pakistan and India, which is bad because that means that part of the world is under flood, extreme flooding. And then similarly in China and Korea, you see on one side you see extreme flooding happening. Now the ideal situation would be white or light blue, but this is what the world is right now, extremes that are happening. So let's think about like what does history tell us, and what type of drought are happening in the world right now, and what types of floods are happening right now, and what is the impact is the last slide on this in this material, but I will go to the actual stories and actual content so that you can directly read through it. So first of all, the first thing is Surah Al-Araf, and I was amazed when I read these verses in Surah Al-Araf. If you start from verse number like around 120, you come across the story of the Pharaoh and Moses, and it goes into a lot of detail about like how Moses comes and he shows his miracle, and then the magicians come, and then they have a competition, and then the magicians say that we're gonna accept Moses' religion. Pharaoh argues, why are you doing that? And I'm gonna give you punishment. Regardless, they Moses wins, but people start asking Pharaoh, "Are you going to leave Moses?" Then Pharaoh said, "No, we're going to give more punishment." The followers of Moses alayhi salam said, "We were punished before you. We will be afflicted after you. So what's the difference?" Now, then Allah Ta'ala shows few things. Verse 130. Indeed, we afflicted Pharaoh's people with famine and shortage of crops, so they might come back to their senses. Just remember this. Allah Ta'ala is now showing signs. First sign, the big sign, was shown by Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Very few listened. Then Allah Ta'ala starts showing the signs. Sign of famine and shortage of crops. When they were happy, the people of Pharaoh, they went back. And when they were afflicted by punishment, they blamed it on Moses and those with him. Now, they said, no matter what sign you bring to deceive us, we will never believe in you. So then Allah Ta'ala says in verse 133 over here, so we plagued them with floods, with locusts, with lice, with frogs, and blood. All are clear signs, all as clear signs, but they persisted in arrogance and were a wicked people. So, the key message from here, in that region of Egypt where Pharaoh lived, his people endured floods and famine at the same time. And both were a sign as well as a punishment from Allah. So, now coming back to where we are right now, we're seeing floods and famine at the same time. So this part, let's talk about the famine. Let's talk about the drought first, because drought leads to famine. When there is no water, there are no crops. No crops is equal to famine. So, article from CNN 2 days before. Extreme heat is slamming the world's 3 biggest economies all at once. We just looked at the map. It's the US, it's the Europe, and China. And you see this person standing. This person is standing in the place where the biggest river, England's river Thames, it starts. The origin. This is the place where it starts, and it's like completely dry. When you look at like all of these things, now think about this in the context of what is happening in the world. We just have a pandemic. We just had inflation. We know that the economy is slowing, and now there's famine. Now there's drought in 3 of the biggest economies of the world. So, tourism reshaped. Look at these pictures. This bridge used to be fully like this basin was fully underwater. Like it wasn't. This isn't a river. This is now things. This area was fully underwater. Look at these pictures. Look at like this is the size or the level of water where in Lake Mead, where the water was used to be. And then at the same time, you have flash floods. We're going to talk about floods, but just keep in mind when the land is totally dry, and when you suddenly have a lot of rainfall, there's no way for water to go. It just goes all just straight on the surface because the land is so dry, and that causes floods and destruction. So then there is an article that the parts of England are officially into drought. Then there is article on 60% of land in European Union and UK is now experiencing drought conditions. August 8th. There is an article that the farmers are killing their own crops and selling cows because of extreme drought. There is an article that Israel is now pumping water from the ocean into one of the lakes just so that the lake survives, because the lake will not survive. So they're doing the opposite thing to keep the lake for its tourism purposes. Then you have the drought, it's expanding to different parts. So it expands to northeast Texas, and the different areas. Let me just go into, so for example, this is the France's longest river, hit by exceptionally lows during historic drought. And in Europe, what's happening right now is there are things that are appearing from within the river. For example, there are inscriptions on stones where people inscribed that do not, if you see this writing, you should be very scared about yourself, because what might happen is there will be death, there will be famine. This happened, people wrote this like 700-800 years ago, because when the river goes below that level, it's like almost impossible to do any irrigation, even have water for other things. So in China, they're trying to seed clouds to replenish the rivers. While these things are coming up, let me just show one interesting thing. So there's this lake. Okay, so there's this lake in Iraq, Lake Sawa. And the interesting part about this Lake Sawa, this article is from 2016. And this person says that this Lake Sawa has some special miraculous qualities, that there's no inlet to the lake. It came out, or it appeared in 571, in the year that the Prophet was born. It has some healing properties. It is a saltwater lake in the middle of the desert, and it has never gone dry. And there are certain narrations that when it goes dry, there's that would be near the time of reappearance of the 12th Imam. So now that lake in 2022, this is the situation of that lake now. This lake on the left is how it showed on Google Maps, like up to like 3-4 years ago. But now this is how it is showing up right now. And that's the crazy part. Like,
je m'inquiète de tout.
So think about this. This lake, which has never gone dry, has completely dried. And now if you look at like the water cuts that are coming in different different states, the lake human remains are being found in lakes because the water level is so low. It's happening around like all areas, like Las Vegas. This news article is about a Welsh, like in Wells, a village reappeared, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things are happening, right? Now this is everything from a drought perspective. Let's just look at like what's happening from the flooding perspective. This is an image from Balochistan, Pakistan, where there's so much flood that people have died. Hundreds of people have died. Cars have been swept away in order from the from the place. Like these people are trying to survive somehow, because their car is about to be swept away, and they got lucky that this happened. Like they were able to come out. Now, you look at this image. Like look at this flood. Look at this flood. Look at the destruction of the cattle. Look at the destruction of the sheep. And then look at this flood. This is happening right now in Pakistan. All the houses, all the places are destroyed. Then look at this image. This used to be full of farmland. It's flooded with water throughout where you can see. This is flooded with water. All the everything is destroyed. And then look at this article. In Seoul, a few weeks ago, there was so much flooding. Not a few weeks ago, like 6 days ago. There was so much rain that people died in the city. In Korea, like think about Korea. Korea, you don't even think about flooding because it's such well-drained system. Like everything is so well organized. You had flash flooding in Las Vegas, where 2 people died. You have Lake Mead, which is in Las Vegas or in Nevada, which is going down and down in its depth, and people died because of flooding in Las Vegas. Again, the concept of flash flooding. California, there is a study that there could be a mega flood that could hit California. Kentucky, there was extreme flooding in Kentucky just few weeks ago. Nigeria, 50 people were killed in Nigeria because of flooding. Now think about this. You have flooding, you have drought at the same time. And then this is not only it. You have flooding in, like as I mentioned, in Balochistan, you have flooding in Iran, you have flooding in Pakistan, flooding in parts of the world like Korea, India, and then you have drought in 3 of the biggest economies of the world. So where does that take us? Coming back to the point. What does that mean? It's whether someone believes this or not, it is a sign of Allah. It is a sign that there's something big that is coming. We're going to talk about signs. I've talked about signs in different parts of discussions, but this is a sign. Like you have flooding and drought of amazing sizes around the world at the same time. And the most interesting part is that people ignore it as if it's part of climate change. Yes, it's part of climate change, but who controls the climate? Yes, it's part of climate change, but have you thought about why is it happening in 2022? It could have happened in 2040. It could have happened in 2010. But why is it part of the sequence that started in 2017, 18, with the child being killed in Medina, with the killing of Qasem Soleimani, with the virus coming in? Why is it happening now? And then being very objective, just think about from a scenario planning perspective. What is the impact of this flooding and this drought going to have on the entire world economy? Just think about it. And I just want to share this concept of scenario planning because it's so important. It was introduced by strategists at Shell. But the thought is, you don't have to be a clairvoyant or someone who can foresee the future to really understand what might happen in the future. Because, for example, if you know that there is a lot of rain in Himalayas, you will know that downstream in cities of like Allahabad or where Ganges River flows, there will be flooding 2-3 weeks down the road, because that's how cause and effect works. Similarly, today on August 19, 2022, when you know that there is drought in the world, when you know that there is flooding in the world, both of these are causing damage and destruction to the crops. What will happen? It will literally result in food shortage around the world. Shortage that is already there, it will just compound that shortage to a level that we cannot imagine. And I pray, and I humbly pray to Allah that Allah Ta'ala keeps and protects us during these tough times. Thank you. We'll talk later. Assalamu alaikum.